Hi there. In this video, we're going to continue looking at user functions inside of Power Query. To start off with, we're in user function simple.xosx. We're in the grow sheet, and here's the table that we're working with today. So right now, we're going to create sort of a growth function, and we've got all of our different stores. We've got the sales for last year, the sales for this year, the club members last year, the club members this year for each one of the stores, and we want to calculate a growth rate. Now, since, this would be pretty easy to do just with custom columns, but since we're sort of performing the same calculation twice, this is a good candidate for user functions, because we're going to define it once and we can use it multiple times, and if we have to fix it, we could fix it once, and that fix will sort of trickle down to all the different places that we use it. Okay, so we're going to click on the data here. We're going to head over to Power Query, and we're going to get our data from a table. All right, now I have to remember, like last time, if we want to define a user function, we can't do it via the traditional GUI. We have to go into the advanced editor to do it there. Looks really scary. It's not so scary. I find as you use it more and more, you'll find it to be a very good friend. It's a fun place to work. Okay, so we're going to define a function, and I'm going to call this function growth rate, right? And this function is going to, whoops. Okay, so that's the name of it. All right, so it's going to take two arguments. The first argument is this year, arg data for this year, and the second argument is arg last year. Okay, so FNC, that just lets me know as I'm like working with this that this is a function. I don't have to include that. I just chose to. Arg, same kind of deal. This lets us know that these are arguments, right, as opposed to like variables or something like that. So these are going to get passed into a function. So we've just got data that we're going to push into the function for this year and last year. All right, now that we know that's what's going to go into our magical black box that we're about to define, what do you do with it once we put it in the magical black box? Well, it's pretty simple. To start off with, we're going to take this year's number. We're going to take this year's number. We're going to subtract last year's number, right? And I'm just going to add some spacing here so it's a little easier to read. And then we're going to divide it by last year's number, right? Simple growth formula, okay? End minus begin divided by begin. That's it. Easy as that. And we're going to add a comma right there, okay? So we've named our function. We've just told Power Query what arguments go into it, and here we've defined what you do with the arguments when you push them into the function. So I'm going to click Done, and just like before, this hasn't changed at all because we haven't called the function, we've only defined it. So if I click up here, the first step, this is just the function definition, right? This step doesn't do anything, but we could just call it later on, okay? So we've created a magical black box. The magical black box takes two arguments, a number for this year, a number for last year. Then it takes this year's number, it subtracts last year's number, and then it divides it by last year. That's it. Okay, so let's head over to the last step, and let's go ahead and use this. So we're going to head over to Add Columns. We're going to add a custom column. See, oh, and by the way, when you're using user functions, you kind of have to remember the order of the arguments. It's not going to give you a pop-up like it does in Excel, like in IntelliSense, letting you know what to enter where. So we have to remember it's this year and then last year. This year, last year. Okay, change type. Add custom column. And we're going to do FNC growth. Well, spelled it wrong. Growth, right? Okay, so we're going to call the function. So what are we going to pass into it? Well, let's start by getting our sales calculation. So it's this year, sales this year, comma, last year. So we're going to pass the sales for each row. We're going to pass the sales for this year and the sales for last year into our magical black box, and it's going to return the growth. So we're going to call this sales growth. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Oh boy, I spelled it wrong. Let's see, go in here. FNC growth rate. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry about that. Rate. Click OK. There we go. Okay, so we do have a problem here where the growth rate for sales, these all look just about right. But this particular one, we get infinity, and that's because the sales last year was 0 because the store probably wasn't open yet. We'll deal with that in a second. I'm not ignoring it, or I am, but I'm actively ignoring it because I'm going to fix it shortly. Okay, so we've got our sales growth number. So now we're going to get our club member growth. Okay, So we're going to call this club member growth. Okay, same kind of deal. Growth rate. I'm going to call the correct function this time. So we're going to pass in this year's number and then last year's number. So club members this year, comma, club members last year. Close out the function. I'm going to click OK. All right, so let's see. These are kind of hard to read, but those both look about right. So let's see, when sales this year. Yep, those passed the gut check. So we've sort of got a first step, and we've seen how you do that. Now, here's where it becomes useful. Since we're using this function in multiple places, since we've got this problem where if the number for last year was 0, we end up with infinity. We could just fix the function in one place, and then it'll repair itself here and there. So let's go build ourselves a better formula. Okay, so the problem is if the number for last year was 0, the growth rate is infinity. That's just how dividing by 0 works. Oddly, you don't get an error the way you would in another language. You get an infinity, which is kind of interesting and fun. Okay. But let's solve the darn thing, okay? So we're going to solve this with an if-then statement. So we've got an if. So we want to know if the if the argument for last year, Control C, if the argument for last year equals 0, then, well, if it's last year it equals 0, then, I mean, we could enter whatever we want to. I'm just going to put in 0 for right now. We don't have to handle it that way. We're just basically going to say that, in fact, let's not do 0. Let's do null. Maybe that makes more sense. So if there was no sales last year, no members last year, don't return a value, don't return infinity, just return no or blank, okay? Else, if it's not 0, that assumes that the store is not new, therefore we can go ahead and calculate our function. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now, rather than having those infinities, we've got nulls, right? See how that works? Now, let's say we pass this over to our decision maker and they say, well, I don't like those nulls, I want zeros. Again, super duper easy. You just fix it in one place. You go over to advanced editor, we're going to fix it in one place. We're just going to come over here and say, instead of null, we're just going to type in 0 or 100 or anything you want to, and you fix it in that one place, and it sort of trickles down. The results trickle down to everywhere you make that function call. Okay, well, I do hope that was helpful, and I will see you next video.